Hi, I'm Eddie Burke. I've been the bartender at the Hollywood Improv for 40 years, and this is my podcast, Eddie's Bar at the Improv. All right, guys, this is Eddie Burke. Welcome to Eddie's Bar at the Improv podcast. My guest today is Mr. J.J. Wall, who I shall salute with a little...
Happy to have a libation.
Cast-off drink. So, JJ...
I can recall a night or two of us doing that.
You think? I remember sitting right over there.
Yeah, quite a
way
few
back
nights.
when, talking about, we better have another drink.
Yep.
Where did this all begin for you? Comedy?
It actually began, I was with the airlines, with American Airlines. And I had always wanted to be a comic, but I felt guilty because I won scholarships and I was a smart kid, and my father was a fireman. So for me to win scholarships and that kind of stuff, I had to kind of deliver. And so that's why I went to the airlines, and I was a rising young junior executive.
Of course.
I worked my senior year because you could still work at college and get your tuition. I worked 3 different jobs, but I was able to earn my tuition. And I got a college degree while I was cleaning planes for the airlines. So I became this college-educated union guy, which was good for the airlines. But it was, I was like, no, I'm a guy who cleans toilets who happened to get a college degree. I really want to be a comic. And then I started doing comedy because I could fly for free. So my first paid gig was in Monrovia, Liberia. And it was a British embassy party in Liberia. And it was mainly because I could fly there free. I only got paid $150.
How did you get that particular job? Did you run into somebody on the plane?
It was through a friend of mine, through a guy named John Dornheim.
John who?
Dornheim. I want to turn this off.
Yeah, John Dornheim. I do not know that
name. There's no reason you would know him. He's a good guy. He was a roommate, and he got me that gig because he was working as an executive with Air Liberia at the time, and I knew him from the airlines. So that was my first gig, but it was mainly, like I said, because I could fly for free, because it was 50% stolen material.
and nobody in Liberia was going to know.
Nobody in Liberia knew.
When you were a kid, was this an aspiration to be
I always wanted to, because my father always watched, like, Ed Sullivan and anything with a stand-up on it. Mm-hmm. My father was a big fan of, because he had been a fan from when he was a kid. He was an orphan at 13, so that was his kind of comfort.
Did you have your own idols at that point, and when you were a kid?
Initially, Alan King, and then
okay.
George Carlin and Richard Pryor. Certainly, when I got hipper and a little cooler.
Oh yeah, not.
And nowadays, guys you've mentioned, Kevin Rooney and Dana Gould and Jimmy Valley's a funny guy.
Yeah, there's those guys are still around, and they're all great. The how'd you get to New York and did you work the New York Improv?
I'm from New York, so I grew up there. But I actually started doing stand-up in San Francisco. Really going out and doing clubs.
This is I guess the airplane is just taking you everywhere.
It was great. It was how
I grew up in New York, but my first job was in Liberia, and then I started in San Francisco.
San Francisco at a place called the Coffee Gallery. That was my first actual, get up in front of a crowd full of strangers and do it. I guess Liberia would qualify, but I was
that
kind of
an open mic or a regular?
It must have been an open mic, yeah, because I didn't get paid anything, and I can it must have been an open mic.
So how did you get to the East Coast?
Well, like I said, I was from here, and I think I was going out with a girl at the time, and I transferred back to from New York rather, and I transferred back to New York from San Francisco. I think I was being chased by several criminal complaints too. It wasn't just. And then when I got to New York, I already had 45 minutes of material, so I started working out at a small club downtown called the Good Times, where I met Rich Scheidner, and others. And then I went to Catch a Rising Star, but I had already 45 minutes or an hour of material, so I got to move up pretty quickly.
Yeah, Catch was a big club back then. I think it still exists.
No, Catch is closed. It was a Chinese restaurant for a while. The Green Kitchen, which is the diner we all ate at, is still there. But Catch Rising Star is closed, although they're about to get their first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member in Pat Benatar.
Oh, because of Pat Benatar, yeah. Sure.
She was managed by Rick Newman, who owned Catch a Rising Star.
Actually happened to be here, I'd say, 2 years ago. Came in.
Yeah, he was promoting a book.
Well,
or something
he
like that.
He came in. I think it was for Bud's book. when Bud had his book signing or what have you, because he came in and it was like, God, I hadn't seen him in God knows how long.
Yeah.
Did you work the Improv in New York?
I did. I worked the Improv in New York some, but Catch was my home club. I went to the Improv a lot because, we'd go out on gigs together and sometimes leave from the Improv because it was on the West Side. So any of the Jersey gigs, you left from the Improv. But yeah, I worked a little bit, but mainly it was Catch Rising Star and the Comedy Cellar. Actually, I worked a lot in those days. Yeah.
How did you get out here? What brought you out here to settle?
I was starting to do TV show warm-ups. I started doing Kate and Allie, and also I wrote a script for them, and then I got offered a script out here to do a warm-up for a show, a couple of Alan Burns shows. Alan Burns was the co-creator of Mary Tyler Moore. So I kind of was writing, doing stand-up, and doing TV warm-ups, so I figured, why not go to Los Angeles and give it a shot?
And it worked. So I let everybody know what you've done. I mean, you wrote for Grace Under Fire.
Way back when, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Arrested Development.
Arrested Development I've acted on, actually.
Okay.
I never wrote for them. I wrote for the John Larroquette show, which I personally liked. For some reason, they gave me a job on Blossom, too. I think that might have had to do with the warm-up, because I certainly wasn't right to the right guy to write for a
I hate to admit it. I used to watch Blossom with my kids and enjoyed it. And
it was a fun show, but like I said, I don't know what I was doing on it.
Hey, if it works,
absolutely,
that's all that counts.
Absolutely.
Just so everybody knows, though, you are a writer, producer, actor, and you've done so many different things. I assume that you're just all over the board, but you have some really great credits.
Yeah, I tried to stay busy, and I always felt like something would kind of pull me one way or the other, And as I told you before, I do miss doing stand-up. Stand-up is the one thing I wish I had kept up with a little bit more.
Well, but you still can. So you need to come back.
Yeah,
and get back.
I keep saying to my daughter, though, boy, we used to do it 10, 20 times a week.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I have that kind of energy anymore.
No, well, you probably don't need that kind of energy
That's
anymore.
probably true.
So getting back to, how did you get to the Improv here?
Out here was thanks to Rick Newman, who we mentioned, the guy who owned Catch Rising Star, I think called Mark and Bud on my behalf. And one or the other of them, or both, passed me. And then I started, and it was a long time before I got on The Tonight Show. And the reason I got on The Tonight Show was Gary Shandling.
Was he hosting when you got on, or
he was just he got Macaulay to come down and see me. He got Jim Macaulay, who was the booker for the Tonight Show, to come down and see me. But yeah, I became kind of one of Bud's main go-to acts out here. And what he would do was, it was very shrewd, because when they'd open up a new club, they'd put me in for the first week because I was so much less expensive than a celebrity act, but they knew I'd do well. So I'd go in and I'd do my week. And
sounds like Bud.
Oh, it was classic Bud, and I didn't mind. I had no problem.
No, it's more work for you. It's more experience, more exposure, more everything.
Yeah.
So, did you also do Evening at the Improv?
Yeah, he finally muscled me into doing about 6 of those, I think, which I actually didn't mind doing. I enjoyed doing them until he made me I used to do an improvisational bit at the end of the act, and he made me do one of those on TV. And I kept saying, Bud, that's not going to, improv doesn't work on TV. And he insisted and insisted.
Yeah, our corporation owns those, I believe.
I love doing, out of whatever number I did, I love doing everyone but the improvisational one.
I'm trying.
And that's me. I mean, it might have worked better than I think.
I'm sure it did. You never remember the good parts of what you did.
That's right.
Was it the well?
I don't remember if it was a blues song, but my guess is yes. It was that bit. But
I'm trying to get the corporation to release these episodes. I don't think they have back on Comedy Central or
they probably play them.
E or wherever, because can you imagine seeing all of you guys in your infancy? In the 80s.
It probably would have been fun, but there was an Irish guy that owned them. I got like...
not anymore.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I remember he sent out like 22-cent residuals and stuff like that.
I do believe he passed away, and I do believe that
they got
Levity owns the rights to them. Not 100% sure. But if they do levity, you guys need to put these shows out. You would see everybody and his mother 40 years ago.
Yeah, because at one point or another, everybody did that show.
Yes.
If for no other reason than to make sure you kept working the improvs.
That's right. And he had some great celebrity guests.
Oh, sure.
I mean, hosts. So it was, I mean, it just went on. That's where like all the big money went to.
Yeah.
While all you guys got,
We got
I don't
scale.
know, whatever scale was.
I remember doing one with Craig T. Nelson. I had walking pneumonia that night. I got up out of bed, came down here, did the show. Pretty much, I guess you had to stick around for a bow. I don't remember what the end of it was. But.
What has there been a highlight? I mean, a show or whatever that you just loved writing on, that you just felt it was part of you?
Well, I had 2 shows on the air. I enjoyed them to an extent. One had Tom Arnold in it, so it was difficult.
That was the Tom show?
Yeah, that was the
Yes.
Tom show. But it was fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it was my first show. Writing-wise, I would say probably the John Larroquette show was a real, because it was so wide open. You could do so much with it. You know, it was a midnight to 8 at a bus station show. So it was kind of
Right. I
bizarre.
remember that show. Yeah,
Yeah.
It just ran though for 2 or 3
And it was Don
seasons.
Rio, who's always a pleasure to work with.
Yeah. You also wrote on the Army show,
That was another one of mine, yeah.
and I mention that because I actually worked on that show.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, as an actor, and the only way I remembered that is that I can't remember who I worked with. Oh, it might have been Jimmy Pardo or somebody on that show, and reminded me that, you know, we worked on that show together, because that
That's
was,
so funny.
God, how long ago that was?
That was after the Tom show.
Yeah,
But yeah, we had a high-speed tank chase in that show.
and the Army show.
I think that show was before its time.
Probably, yeah.
Anyway, it went right in
How was it
the
working?
crapper.
How was it working with Tom?
Tom, I could sum it up actually in one line when he said to his assistant, "Vinny, I'm going to the toilet. Bring my cigar." That was what
God.
working with Tom was like.
It was.
You were always bringing a cigar to the toilet somehow.
I do believe I've told this story before, but I worked with Tom at the very beginning when he was really just Roseanne's husband.
Right.
Do you remember Sunday Night Comics? That
Sure.
was one of the first Fox shows when Fox came into existence, and I was part of their little troupe that did their short films and stuff like that, and I worked with Tom on a film where he played Babe Ruth. I was a doctor showing him around the hospital, and he's telling the kids, "I'm going to hit one for you tomorrow." And we're shooting it, and the director goes, "Cut, guys, that was great. Tom, I need you to just come in a little quicker after Eddie's lines." Okay. We do it again. Same thing. Director goes, much better. I still need you to come in just a little quicker." And we do it a third time. Same thing. "Tom, you're getting there. Just a little quicker." And then he goes, "Yeah, but he's got to say his line quicker." And I didn't know what to say. I mean, I'm just a hired hand there, and I'm not going to cause a problem. I just stood there, and the director just looked at me and went, whose name I do believe might have been Tom Moore. No, it wasn't. Anyway, it's okay. I'll take care of it. He said, "Okay, Tom, he'll say his line quicker. You just need to come in." And and in his defense, he was just very insecure.
He was
had just started.
always very insecure.
Yeah.
And not a bad guy.
Oh, absolutely not. He's
I
a
felt
very
bad
nice
for anybody
guy.
that had to work directly with him. But
Well, he's doing stand-up again.
Is he?
He's been
Yeah.
coming in every now and then and doing
I
stand-up.
wish him well.
Yeah, no, hopefully, yeah, because when he started and he was Roseanne's husband, again, they had to, Roseanne would call and go like, "Can you guys put Tom up again?" But Mark would go, "Yeah, without a doubt, as long as you go on first.
Right.
We'll put him up."
And her first time here, because she was here the day after she did the Tonight Show, and Bud
Right.
almost didn't put her up, and then was going to make her wait. And I actually remember saying to him, Bud, she killed on the Tonight Show, and because remember that was her domestic goddess bit, I think, and she, blew the roof off the place. And
How was your Tonight Show the first time you did it?
the first time I thought was very good. The second time I thought was terrific.
Which
But
you
that
did
kind of
it once?
culminated it for me. I did two, and
You
I did
one
Letterman
with-
once.
Okay, you did one with Gary Shandling as the host?
No,
Oh,
Johnny
they
was
both
the
were
host
Johnny.
both times.
Okay.
But Gary got Jim McCauley down to see me.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, it's a senior moment. Forgot me. What had you met Johnny before that?
No,
How was that? Or did you meet him?
I didn't. Well, I met him very briefly. I didn't get to sit on the couch,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a thrill. That was
Yeah.
one of my father's big idols, and certainly one of mine. And I discovered something with that show. I do tend to, once I've done something, I tend to lose interest in doing it again, which is not a good trait.
No, not in your
Not in
business.
show business.
Yeah, it's like I did stand up on the improv stage. That's
It's
enough. I'm not
over.
going up. But put Tom Arnold up.
That's it.
Call your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Was it like? Did you have like a special feeling? When you did it the first time.
I was so prepared, and I've heard other guys say this, and I think it's true. You're just so prepared that unless you're crazy and you start to ad-lib, which some guys are, and some guys do, but generally, if you do the spot that was okayed, I didn't feel nervous at all. In my case, I didn't feel nervous. I felt just, I know what I'm doing. I was more nervous getting through the curtain. I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up.
The first time that you performed here in this club at the Improv, how did that come about?
Well, the first time would have been that, Mark or Bud passed me. But the
Right,
first
but-
time that I came in just as an act, I was terrified. I really, as confident as I always had been, I felt a little nervous. But I think I did okay because I kept coming back, so I must
Right,
have
you
done
kept
okay.
coming back and they passed you. It's
Yeah.
This place back then and hopefully now has this aura about it.
Oh, yeah.
Where when a comic steps on that stage, again, back then it was like, wow, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
On-
It definitely always
on the
has
improv
been
stage, yeah.
a very, very special place. And personally, I like this one better than the one in New York, but I never really got to know the one in New York very much.
Yeah.
And the fact that someone actually went broke with that place
Well,
always
that's-
shocked me. It's like, how do you go broke? It's 9th Avenue and 44th Street. You're paying nothing for rent. You got a place that's an institution.
Well, yeah.
All you
that-
have to do is keep charging.
Jim,
Cover
for the
charges.
door. Yeah, that's pretty much what started here when Bud opened this club.
Yeah.
I remember, and until at one point though, it was very kind of dead. Things were not going too well, and I do believe he was about getting very close to closing the club.
Wow.
Until Mark came in.
Uh-huh.
And injected some money and some life and made it a business because all of Bud's partners used to eat and drink here for free.
Oh, really?
Or not partners, investors.
Right.
They
right.
would come in and eat and drink for free. Mark came in, made it just a total business. Not total, but put a business acumen around
Right.
it. You guys will run you tabs for and send you a bill at the end of the month, but you've got to pay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will not be getting any dividends because we will not be open
Yeah.
anymore.
A lot of restaurants that happens to, bar restaurants. Because I remember I used to manage a place back in New York called the Cotton Patch. And I started making the money. I tripled their bar business and maintained their food business because I brought in a guy singer who was friends with all the models. So the models came in. It was 56th and 2nd Street, 2nd Avenue. And once the models came in, it was gold. But we weren't supposed to make money.
Yeah,
it was a
that-
Goldman Sachs investment. We were supposed to lose money. And I ended up, they closed the place.
Because you're making.
Because we're making money.
Oh, that's so funny because I at one point I heard the same thing about this place when one of the I don't know which owner took over after Bud and Mark, whether it was the Copeland Corporation or it was like we kind of got the feeling that they wanted to lose money here while making money at the other clubs.
Right.
Because this was their tax write-off or something.
My
like
brother-in-law tried to explain this to me. He's in construction and building. And I guess 1 out of 7 properties should always be vacant if you're going to make your tax thing make sense.
So weird.
I have no idea.
I don't either. It's
like you could be literally speaking another language to me once you get into that kind of stuff.
You're not the only one. I mean, if somebody said to me like, we want this place to lose money so that we can have a tax write-off, you go like, well, wouldn't it be better to like make a fortune and pay a tax than like, let's say, just not make any money at all? I'm not the brightest bulb, so I don't
Right.
get it either.
I know.
The Cheesecake Factory and In-N-Out Burger are doing it all wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
They have one desolate location that's out of business.
That's funny, but
That's true.
yeah, but that is exactly true. You've been nominated, I believe, for Cable Ace with for which show?
Yes. I don't even remember.
Oh, it was.
That's a long time
Free to
ago.
Laugh?
Oh, that was a human rights show. That was like
Yes,
Amnesty
Amnesty
International.
International,
Oh yeah.
right.
Yeah, that was one. Speaking of Tom Arnold, I looked up. I was down in the green room watching the monitor. Lily Tomlin was there. A lot of, I mentioned her because I remember her right off the top of my head, but a lot of big stars were there.
Mm-hmm.
Woody Harrelson was there. And I looked at the monitor at one point, and Tom Arnold was screaming at somebody in the front or second row of the audience, "Fuck me! No, fuck you!" I was like, "What? Huh?" And I don't know what happened, but he and Roseanne had convinced the audience that they had to fly off to do a charity. This is like midnight. And they had to leave right away in the middle of the show.
Okay.
Maybe it was 11 o'clock, but the show was going on. And he was screaming. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that kind of language.
Yeah, that's fine. It's now wait a minute.
But that is what I heard.
Well, and this was a time where that language didn't flow freely.
Oh
like
no, and it
does
was
today.
like it was close to a fist fight. It was close. Like he was getting ready to go, and Tom would go.
Oh yeah, no, from what I've heard too.
Well, Gilbert was on the set one time when he and Tom and I almost got into it.
Really?
We didn't. We both kind of.
About what?
It was, I'm sure, something stupid. Mm-hmm. It was about a line or whatever it was.
About a line.
He probably said a line was stupid, and I took offense or something. It was along that line. Mm-hmm. But Gilbert was very excited. He thought there was actually going to be a fight.
That was, but the fact that was a whatever for Amnesty for.
Yeah, and it was for Amnesty International.
But it was still. I think that's a great credit, even being nominated for a Cable Ace.
I was proud of the work. I was very happy to do it.
Who did you work with? What other writers were on there with you?
On the Amnesty International show? Oh gosh, I remember having to explain a joke to Katie Seagal, but she wasn't writing. I honestly don't remember. I'm sure.
Did you also write for Arrested Development?
No, I never wrote on Arrested Development. They put me in the show because Jimmy Vallely and Mitch Hurwitz thought that I was somehow creepy but not a definite child molester. That I was one of those creepy, touch too much uncles.
I just always found you creepy, period. It's like, forget I'm not even going to go to the kid part.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the child molester part was Jimmy, and I'm sure the creepy part was Mitch. Because Jimmy tends to go a little further than Mitch.
Yeah, Jimmy would. Yeah, I know. When he was here with Kevin, it was a trip. I sat back for 10, 15 minutes while they just talked to each other.
Yeah.
And which was great because the less you hear of me, the better off we all are. Let's talk a little bit about your acting. You've done quite a bit, and was that kind of like you just segued into that from writing, or vice versa, or just simultaneous?
It was simultaneous, but it also was a combination of people wanted me to get to do warm-ups for them for their TV shows. So Paramount used to give me all sorts of work, both in Cheers and in other nice shows.
Yeah.
And CBS, Bob Newhart, and Bob Newhart was a stand-up, so he kind of took me under his wing automatically, because he used to do 10 minutes of stand-up before the show.
Oh,
so he would really set them up,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would take it from that point on. But I worked for him and for his show when I was still when I did the Tonight Show, so I got a big play from him. And Tom Poston I actually got to be friends with.
Really?
And he was just amazing and crazy. I mean, he had in a wonderful way.
Yeah.
I mean, a sense of humor, crazy.
No,
Dave Thomas too, for that matter.
Yeah, right. I do remember him too. There's how was Newhart? Really friendly, nice.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Very supportive. I was invited to watch. It was one of the Montoya fight, Oscar
De La Hoya.
Fights, and I watched it with him, Tom Poston, Bill Dana.
Oh, sure.
And a couple of other old comics, and it was just one of the highlight nights of my life, actually.
Bill Dana, yeah.
Jose Jimenez and Tim
Jimenez.
Conway. That's who one of the other guys was.
Yeah, Bill Dana's the most memorable bit to me was I love to go under the baseball stands and look up the ladies' skirts. You know, it's like,
oh God.
That was Bill Dana.
He's an act you couldn't do today.
No,
not Jose Jimenez.
Not and be politically correct because hopefully that will go away soon.
Yeah, you know what I hope stays is you still have to be funny.
Oh yeah, well
I agreed with Barry Crimmins. Barry Crimmins said when he was starting out, there were like 3,500 comics and maybe 35 were funny.
Right.
And now there's 350,000 comics and maybe 35 are funny.
That's
I don't mind politically incorrect. Just be funny.
Yeah, that's speaking of that, what do you think, or do you think there is a difference in comedy from back in the 80s to now?
There's definitely, it's broadened. There's definitely, it's not as hardcore bang, 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 although that varied from comic to comic. But it also is, there's a lot more females in it, which I think is good. And there's a lot more honesty to what people talk about. Mm-hmm. And that way, I think it's good. You know, I think things have broadened and they're good. In the terms of everybody being too sensitive to jokes and stuff, like I said, my basic point is always going to be, is it funny or not funny? And if it's funny, then I really don't care if it's politically incorrect. Right. But if it's not funny, I don't really care if it's politically correct either. You know.
Yeah. Do you have any feeling about the fact that there's so much cursing now in the jokes and everything?
Well,
and
yes, I think probably I always felt about cursing in general that it's a spice in a conversation. It's not a main dish. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of women comics have just become foul-mouthed by way of asserting their equality. And I don't know that that's right, wrong, or otherwise, but right. It's an observation I've had. You know.
Well, I ask that because my feeling is I don't mind whatever words you use as long as they fit the joke.
Right.
But I've gone in so many times, you know, a young comic or whatever, would ask me, if you get a minute, come in and watch my act, as if I knew what I was doing. And the first things out of so many people's mouths are like, yo, motherfucker, how you guys doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know, I'll be back later, but...
I always thought that, in a weird way, the Comedy and Magic Club had a good balance that way. They would, if they liked you, they'd let you use a little language, but they were basically a clean club.
And
the improv, I don't know what it's changed. It could be much different than what I remember, but as I remember, it was kind of balanced.
Yes, the improv back in the day, Bud really did not like a lot of profanity.
Yeah.
Thus, somebody like Andrew Dice Clay wouldn't put up. He let him go on evening at the Improv.
That's funny.
But, I think, but he wouldn't put him up very much, if at all, basically because of his language.
Well, yeah, and Andrew Dice Clay was the act.
Yes. That was just thing. The act, because I knew him a little bit.
Yeah.
And nicest guy in the world. Very nice.
Not a bad guy. And I remember him from Pips in Brooklyn, and he was Andrew Eisenstein or Andrew. But he did it. He was an impressionist. He did a lot of different. One of which was the Andrew Dice Clay character. But he also did a guy from he did the Nutty Professor. Andrew something. But anyway.
Yeah.
But he got locked into that one character. Mm-hmm. He's not a bad actor either.
No, I remember the first thing I saw him in as an actor was some mafia type show years ago where he was like a henchman or something like that, and I thought he did a really fine job, and I think that now I don't know if he was on shows like The Sopranos or whatever, but they're perfect for somebody like him.
Yeah.
And he is a fine actor.
Well, you know who actually made a career out of being on The Sopranos was Steve Sciarippa, who used to run the Improv in
the Riviera.
Vegas.
Mm-hmm. The Riviera.
Who my wife always said was funnier than 90% of the comics who came through there. And we're still very good friends with him. But he's on Blue Bloods, and he's become a very. I mean, they keep bumping him up every year.
He's in which show?
Blue Bloods, which is one of those shows that's going to be on forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only watch it because that dinner scene at the end is just like my grandmother's was. So
right.
I'm a sucker for it.
The whole family's
and then Sciarippa's in it, so I like to watch him.
It's He's
the only one on the show from New York, by the way.
Oh, is he
little
really?
Little bit of Blue Bloods trivia.
Okay, guys, now nobody, even though the show takes place in New York.
That's right.
Only Steve Sciarippa. Yeah. Everybody else, Selleck and
Selleck's
Wahlberg
and
whomever. Yeah, they're all from some.
Wahlberg's from Boston.
Okay, well, yeah.
Bridget Moynihan, I think, is originally from Massachusetts. I don't know if Boston.
There we go. Let's reveal all these people. You guys aren't New Yorkers, all right?
JJ know all this.
Yeah. It's one of those. We were talking about memory briefly before. I have one of those memories where everything sticks to it. So I'll forget things, but the things that come up, I kill on Jeopardy every night. My wife keeps saying, "Oh, we could be rich," and I'm like, "Yeah," but as soon as I got on the show, I guarantee you,
button.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's what and where do you go from here? Are you still writing? Are you still?
I've been writing books, and I finished one, and it has actually 12 recipes in it. So it's a combination. It's basically a murder. No, it's a murder mystery, but it also this guy. It's called Formerly Fat Eddie.
Well, wait a
Ironically,
minute.
it had nothing to do with you. It's based on a guy. It's based on a guy my brother knew, who was a big, heavy guy. And he got a call from his doctor, literally to stay on the couch, that he was sending the ambulance and the EMTs over. Took him to the hospital. He had a quadruple or whatever bypass. But he took it seriously, and he got himself in shape. And it turned out he was this Adonis underneath this, this shell that he had created. And so the first book is about him. And then the second book is about a retarded guy I knew who drowned when I was a kid.
This is good stuff.
So that's what I'm doing now. And my manager likes it because he said, it's nice to see a comedic mind just go.
Yeah, about a retarded kid who drowns.
Was he a hitman or something in the first book?
In the first book, he's a good guy. He ends up working with a cop to solve a murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to know where the murder part came in.
Yes. Her husband is a dirty accountant.
Oh, I that's great, but I like the one with the retarded kid that drowns.
Jimmy Kelly drowned.
Yeah, that's like.
Well, it's going to turn out that I can't say.
Okay, yeah.
But there's a bunch of Jimmy Kellys that die.
So is this what you're doing now?
I enjoy it, and I go out with pitches. I had a pitch with Patrick Warburton that didn't work out, but
okay.
So if something comes along that I really like, I go out with it. But
yeah, he's working. Patrick Warburton has been rehearsing here with Barry Martyr. Barry's. You remember the book that
Letters from a Crank?
Yes, Letters from a Nut, something
from a
like
nut,
that.
Yeah.
And apparently they're going to tour.
He's going to do the.
He's doing something.
Material.
Yeah. Well, it's not just him. There's like 3 or 4 people that have been rehearsing, and I happen to work out at the same gym that Patrick Warburton is at, and I was talking to him, and he said they were all set to do Irvine with this thing with Barry. And you know, Barry's.
And Jerry is behind Barry too.
Oh, yeah.
100%. So
That's how I think even Barry wrote the book.
Yeah.
Was with funding from Mr. Jerry Seinfeld.
That's correct.
But Jerry's been good to him, and
I was going to say he's been very generous to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. He's written for Jerry for years, and I believe he still opens for Jerry.
Yeah, probably.
At times, I think they kind of like what is it? They alternate. Barry Martyr, Chuck Martin,
Mark Schiff.
Yeah. There's
and I think Mario Joyner does a few of them.
Yes,
too.
Mario does do it too. Mario Joyner. What about? Do you want to go back into script writing for a show?
I don't know. I'm really enjoying the books, and you don't get any notes from anybody on a book.
No, just your wife. If
well,
you
you
let
show
her read
anybody
it.
you want to show, but you don't have to change anything. So it's kind of pleasant. It's like stand up that way.
Well, but when you submit it to your publisher, that's where the notes
Well,
go.
then something. Yeah, if they pay money. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I've known you for a long time. I guess you started here in 82, 83, something like that?
Well, we moved out here in 85, so I probably started a couple
85.
of years before that.
Okay.
Maybe 84, 83.
And you've been married, you said?
Married 41 years.
God, that's...
Got married in 1978. We eloped. California Confidential Marriage Act. No blood test, no license, no waiting.
Oh, wow.
It cost $37.50.
Somebody should have told me that.
Yeah, it didn't cost us anything. Because my daughter now has gone to many different weddings, and people are spending enormous sums of money on
crazy.
weddings.
I know.
And 4 of them so far are divorces.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's like, well, why did you spend this
well,
amount of money?
I have this crazy theory about marriage, and I too have been married for almost 40 years. But I have this theory that people should sign contracts when they get married for like a specified amount of time, like 5 years, 7 years, and at the end of that period of time, both parties have the opportunity to renew or renege, whichever it is. So if you're not getting along, okay, we don't have to go
I
through
can't
anything
imagine
else.
what it must be like to be stuck with someone that you can't stand.
Well-
Because it's just the relationship is just too much. that
And
way.
you're with somebody for, too much of a time.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my little crazy little
I heard
feeling.
one old guy say that he and his wife both never wanted to get divorced at the same time. And that's why they were still together. And I thought that makes some sense.
Oh, God. You have a Twitter feed?
I have kind of one. I think
Is
I
it
have 95
political?
followers. Everything got so political that I almost stopped doing things because it just was. There's so much political stuff out there. But I would say yes, anything I posted has been more political than not.
Yeah, even on Facebook.
Facebook, I just stay away. I got hacked twice in Facebook, so I kept changing passwords, and now I barely go on it.
I know. It's the thing is, so many people just rant on about
and you
whatever.
can't put any opinion out there without having it responded to.
Right.
Which is only fair, but still, it's like, I don't know.
And it usually comes back a little bit harsher.
Oh, always.
And negative, like, how do you, whatever. But how long have you been doing your feed, your Twitter?
I've been doing it for several years, but there's not that many on there. I lost. I was going to do Trump translations at one point, what X meant, and I did about 8 of them in a row, and I got so depressed that I just stopped doing them.
Well, now
I think that's the toughest part of the John Oliver shows and the Bill Maher shows, and is that trying to make jokes out of what are inherently
funny,
difficult things. Yeah, and it's either automatically funny, so you kind of wonder how you do make a joke out of it, or it's so tragic that it's tough to make a joke out of it.
So I am not that familiar with Twittering. So
Yeah.
it's like if people want to find you Twitter-wise.
I think it's under the real J.J. Wall or something.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
it
they
is.
look J.J. Wall up, they would find it.
The J.J. Wall.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm thinking of Twittering and Instagramming, and I probably should have been doing all those things for my podcast.
It probably would
to
help the
begin with.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah. I am on these things, but at the same time, as Mike knows, I am so tech stupid It's just ridiculous. I touch.
You need
my
to
phone.
approach it almost in an old-fashioned way if you're going to do it. And a friend of mine who's written a couple of books said you do your morning pages. So you sit down in the morning, say whatever it is over your cup of coffee that you want to say, and then leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it becomes consuming.
Oh God, I can imagine. Because like I said, I'm tech stupid, but even I will sit there with my phone, and you're just doing whatever.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and you can't remember when you didn't have this technology.
I know. 10 years ago, you didn't.
No, and
probably less than that. But
yeah,
10 years ago, definitely.
I mean, look, I'm young enough to have grown up with. God, you're lucky to have a phone in your house. A landline. To like now, the homeless people all have cell phones and whatever. And they're just out there everywhere. So I've gone through this entire swing of like from no technology to God knows what's next, and I think it's great. It's wonderful. It's
also inevitable.
Yeah, right.
I remember the big breakthrough in our house was getting the long cord for the phone, so you could go downstairs and have a secret conversation.
That's right. Yeah, no, I remember that too.
But my brother and I were grown men when we brought my father his first color TV set.
Really?
Yeah, and it wasn't because he couldn't. He was a working fireman, so he could afford it, but it just never came up.
Yeah, when was this?
Jeez, that had to be. Well, my wife was there, so it had to be. I would say early to mid '80s, early '80s probably. So a long time ago, but still.
His first TV set? Or
No, he had a black and white
first
TV.
Color
He had a big 21 or whatever it was. He had.
Because I hate to say this, but I remember when we got our first TV set. Period.
Wow.
It was this little black and white thing in some big cabinet.
Yeah.
That like we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 stations or 5 stations, and at midnight, all you got was
went out.
Beep
after the national anthem.
Right after the national anthem, and you're going like, okay, now I have to go to sleep, but. Now you don't have to go to sleep.
No.
It's just all
It's kind
there.
of frightening, but it is what it is.
I guess it is frightening because it's 24/7. Everything is 24/7.
I know.
But it's kind of for me, personally, I think it's a welcome change. God knows what's going to happen down the line. I mean, the sky's the limit.
I know.
All this stuff.
And nowadays, I mean, the way I follow news stories is I watch the news channels, the CNNs and the Foxes and the MSNBCs, but then I follow everything down through the local stations. And if it makes it as far as the local station, it's a real story. If it's on local Eyewitness or whatever, or Channel 5, it's a real story.
Now, you said you come from New York. Where in New York?
I grew up right behind Kennedy Airport. Place called Valley
Queens?
Stream. No valley, no stream.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with it because I'm from New York.
Okay.
And went to school at C.W. Post College.
Oh, sure.
Not too far from there. And
I went to Fordham.
Oh, in the
Bronx. Yeah. $1,900 a year, or a semester. It must
oh
have been.
Yeah. Oh,
because like I said, I was able to work. I had to work 3 jobs because I blew my scholarship, but I was able to.
That's funny because I remember like my parents. Having to pay for my school, and I think for the 4 years it was $8,000.
Yeah, that sounds right.
4 years, $8,000 won't get you a half a semester anymore.
No.
No,
my daughter went to Case Western in Cleveland, and I don't know how much it cost. She won a big scholarship because she's a piano player, but even with the scholarship, it was close to $200,000.
Oh God, yeah. It's like, well, you know what?
It's like,
why don't you just give me the scholarship money and I'll invest it. I'll start. Yeah, exactly. What a start in life. I mean,
She said my daughter has told me most of her friends are at least $100,000 in debt.
Oh, student loans.
So they're not buying houses.
Most doctors don't get out of debt for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my daughter's been out of school. She worked with autistic kids for 10 years, and she's got deep in debt from her student loans.
Yeah.
I don't know, she feels she'll never get to pay it off, but she's not alone.
No.
Everybody out there is like that. They're all. It's such a crazy system. We're going to give you all the money you need to go to school, but when you're done, if you don't, I don't know, teach or something like that for 5 years, you will pay it all back with interest. And that's, well, I don't know how we got off onto that, but
well, it's because it's crazy, because everything's going crazy, which is why comedy should be unleashed.
Yeah. what a unique name, Comics Unleashed, for a show.
That's probably been used already. It's probably
yeah, I think there's a guy out there named Byron Allen.
If he hears it, he'll take it.
No, I think that is his show.
I think, is it Comics Unleashed?
Comics Unleashed, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I got to give him credit, too. He's a guy that just, he works and works and works.
Oh, he's done really well. And and I haven't seen him in a long time, but my remembrances of him were like, just the nicest kid, going. And now he's becoming a mogul.
Yeah.
I mean, he just bought a weather station and
Weather Channel.
A Weather Channel.
Channel,
Wow.
The Weather Channel. And
that's actually a pretty good investment for this day and age.
Yeah, and then like 5 other channels last week or the week before. I read these things in the papers, and it's like, wow, Jesus. And so, good for him. So many guys have branched out.
Yeah.
And done other things and gone on. I've branched out. I used to be over there. I'm now over here. It's been a long road.
Yeah.
It's been a 40-year journey. It's
40 years.
My fun has been, meeting and knowing people like you, and seeing the not so much transformation, but the change everybody goes through from way back when to now. It's
also the only gig in the world where you come into a room this size and you're facing pretty much everybody you're in competition with.
Yeah.
Every night.
Right.
No matter what. And half of them are good friends of yours.
Right.
Half of them are generally people you just don't know. But
I know. I was speaking with somebody last night about the fact that the show I'm Dying Up Here, I personally thought was extremely dark and not accurate in terms of how backstabbing the comics were to each other.
Yeah.
Now,
I thought that was very inaccurate.
Yeah. I mean, it to me, now I was around at that time.
We were competitive.
Yes, exactly.
But not very supportive. In a weird way, supportive.
Yeah, well, back at that time, you had guys like you and Jerry Seinfeld, George Wallace, Larry Miller, all of whom came up together.
Right.
And came from New York together. And, you like you said, you're competitive, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Oh, yeah.
But
I wanted to do better than any of them on a given night, but not to the extent of... I wouldn't sit in the back of the room heckling.
That's what. Okay, that's funny. That's how I know I go off on these rants, but it's Donnell Rawlings. You know Donnell?
I don't.
He's a comic. That's how he got his start. He told me that he would sit in this comedy room or whatever, go to these shows, and heckle the comics. And it got to the point where he was being funnier than the comics. And the owner of the club said to him, why don't you put something together and go up on stage? And the rest is history.
Yeah.
He was, that was his thing, and he's doing pretty well. And I think, heckling is where he started.
Hey, anybody who asks me how you break into show business, I tell them that as many people as there are in show business, that's how you break in.
Yeah,
because everybody has a different way of doing it.
You all have your own story. What your break-in moment then was kind of like the writing, or?
I think it was actually when my late friend, Adrian Tolsch, got me on A Catch a Rising Star. I think that was my break moment. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, which was not long after, I started doing the TV warm-ups for Cade and Alley. So that actually enhanced my whole profile.
Right.
In both ways. And then I eventually ended up emceeing stuff like that at Catch, which was, we put the show together. So
right.
Comics put the show together, so it was actually a lot better show.
Oh, that's interesting.
Although out here was always great.
Well, back
but it was when it's your own ass on the line, you tend to pay more attention to the lineup.
When you guys were doing it back in the day, it was all, everybody was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to check the lineup for a club or anything like that. You just walk into the Improv,
and
there you would see George and Jerry and Bill Maher and whomever else, J.J. Wall.
I had some of my best sets late, too.
Oh, yeah, you mean
that's
late,
when you get it, like 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30, because you could try out material. And
Larry David, I mean, I totally remember him closing shows during the week to 3 people. And, like, doing wonderfully. Yeah, I mean, well, treating it as if the audience was full.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to.
Oh, yeah, every time.
Mm-hmm. It's just an unreal thing. JJ, I want to thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I'm glad you called.
My privilege to have you on. Check his Twitter. Your Twitter,
I guess
JJ
Twitter.
Wall or whatever. Subscribe, please, guys, to us. I want to thank Mike Carano, my producer, who I'd be nothing without. And we will see you next week. Peace.